And Aline, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I really appreciate you taking some time to chat today about Authentic Leadership Global. It's kind of remarkable for both of us to acknowledge before we came into this recording that you've been part of Authentic Leadership Global for over a decade now.
I know, that's crazy.
And it's like, yeah, I know. It's amazing how fast we get into decade speak, isn't it? It's quite incredible.
Know.
Yeah.
I know.
So I know that one of the things that I always talk about is how, for me, the work that we do with Authentic Leadership Global helps us to connect more deeply to ourselves. And that enables us then to connect more authentically and more effectively with others. So there's a couple of things that I'm going to ask you about. But the first one is, since you went through the initial training over a decade ago and you've been using these materials, how has that impacted your own personal development?
Well, it's funny that that's the first question, because for me, um, I I felt that taking taking and being part of this, and being invited by Tana in the first place to just open my mind to this word authenticity. Because back then, I mean, I know it's only 10 years ago, but now that word seems to be a bit of a buzzword, where it was just, I was more learning about it and what did that mean. And I was on such a journey of my own discovery of who I am, what feels right. And so I used all of the tools in my personal life for many years before it ever, I'm sure some of it spilled into my professional life, but before it was really at the forefront of my professional life. So personally, I was always someone who was searching for something more, but then I needed to realize that I just needed to come back home to me instead of finding, looking of what was out there. And that's what it brought me home, really, that authenticity is about figuring out what feels right for us. And that was it for me. So, and part of it too, I revisit all of the Tana's teachings on a regular basis. And actually, yesterday I just opened the her most recent book, with the ease amidst challenging times, and what came up was connecting to the breath and kind of giving our nervous system that recheck, and prioritizing things in our life, because we can have all of these feeling pulled in so many different areas. And I think for me, that connecting to the breath and grounding myself, and just sitting with what is, helped with that journey of discovering and allowing myself to be okay with what was here, if that makes sense.
Oh, completely makes sense. And I love that you brought in the reference to the most recent book that Tana
Mhm.
published, and I will add the link when I'm
Oh,
sharing
yeah.
this with others as well, so
Mhm.
that they can access that. Because I think one of the things that we talked quite a bit about is that these tools that we've been using, many of us now for over a decade, are even more important during some of the additional stresses that have come up for
Mhm.
us individually
Yeah.
and collectively during the pandemic. And many of those stresses are continuing to linger in this time of being very unsettled with
Hmm.
how things are. So I appreciate you
Yeah.
bringing that forward. When you think about, and there's many of the people who have come through our training have found that they have been more comfortable in using the materials, first of all, with themselves before they bring them out to clients. So you're not alone in that too. And I know myself, I keep coming back and using particularly the personal planning aspect of the materials that we bring into the training for my own personal growth on an ongoing basis. But when you think about how you've been using this with your clients and what a difference that has made for them, what can you share with us?
Maybe we will blame this cutting out on this blizzard that's happening here in Saskatchewan.
We're still going. It's still good. Yeah,
Good.
still
It was
recording.
so
Keep going.
yeah, it's all good.
Technology is perfectly imperfect, especially with the wild weather we've been having. So give you a moment to think
Yeah.
about this too. So,
Okay, did you ask me a question? Because I totally missed it. You
okay.
completely froze, and so yeah. So ask me again.
So the question that I asked you is, when you think about how you've been bringing these materials to your clients, what
Mhm.
have you seen has been an impact for them? And what has been some of the takeaways that you've heard from your clients? And tell me a
Okay,
little bit, first of all, about how you're using it, because
right.
you're having conversational circles with primarily with women. Is that correct?
With women. Yep. Yep. Circle. Yeah. So I call them my soul clan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so just connecting with other women on a soul level.
Mm-hmm.
Being that and I think I mentioned this to you before, how I talk of how we are souls that have bodies, not bodies that have souls. And that was part of even for me, in my, figuring out who I am, because now that has, it's like that is now part of what I do. Um, and the authenticity is so important to me because what I do is completely unconventional. I'm being a psychic medium is something that I never would have even been able, those words wouldn't have ever come out of my mouth to describe myself. But basically, in my finding out and accepting, not finding out, discovering and remembering really who I am, and feeling of that my purpose is to inspire others by living my life authentically and by sharing um, in what practices I do in my daily life, which include all of the materials, um, and how that can help others then too. Because also I find that part of this in the in my circle groups, um, is that to be inclusive means that it's like embracing what the root of authenticity truly is about sharing what works for us, but then saying, you know what, you can take this, put it in your heart, and if it feels right for you, then use this or adapt it to what does feel good for you. um, it's kind of like meditation. Some people can't sit still. So you start with, okay, well, there is such a thing as meditative walking. So if you need your body to be moving, then start with that. So it's about discovering what and living authentically and all the practices that come into play. Um, because if we're truly being that, then we automatically then can accept others for and embrace others while they are living their authentic truth too. So it's about creating that. I go like this, but that network and that circle
Mm-hmm.
that is stronger when we accept others for who we are. It's not about that circle being, okay, well, you're in the circle, so if you're not in the circle, then you're not part. This is like, no, 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 no. We embrace all. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But how it's worked, or what I've noticed with people is, um, well, I do one-on-one sessions too. So intuitive coaching. So a lot of what I do is just connecting to spirit. And when you're sitting in the place of non-judgment and being and observing it, what it does is it allows people to have that, to bring that sense of ease. And the you know, what I notice with so many people is like the instantly while you're talking to them, the shoulders just lighten, and there's this what you had said to me earlier, it was that sense of peace that can come um, when, and it's not just about taking the materials and um, reciting them to people, it's about living it, because that's what helps others and inspires others, is by truly um, embracing, which is, you know, it's that feels, it feels because it's in the heart.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate how you've articulated that, because you recently joined one of the community conversations with the other facilitators and coaches that have come
Mhm.
through the training, and I think this is one of the things that's so important for me about what we're doing with Authentic Leadership Global, is that we are creating a community of practitioners that can continue to reflect to one another, how is this working for me, and where do I continue need to do my own work, so that I can be, as you said, in that that place of just being in my own place of authenticity. And then how do you find when and this is the thing that you started to talk about that I'd like to hear a little bit more about, is that place of you being in your authenticity, how are you seeing that is impacting your clients?
Hmm. Well, you know, I think part of it was, or is, for the longest time, um, I was in a place of, and I guess it would be a little bit of a lack mentality, feeling like, you know, you need, because there's business part or side to everything too, right? But instantly it shifted into a um, who I'm meant to attract, and
Mhm.
who this will resonate with, that is who will be brought in. And there is someone for everyone, as far as that coaching or that helping, and what works for one doesn't necessarily work for someone else. And like I said, what I do is completely unconventional, you know. It's not like you know, there's any sort of certificate on my wall saying that I'm certified to connect with past loved ones, like what like you know. But for me, in just as far as the people that I attract, um I feel that I really because when you put that, I think we talked about this one other time too, Laura, with that being authentic, the words psychic medium um don't always, there's this idea that it doesn't go hand in hand with integrity, because you're um, maybe there's people who want to reach out because they are desperate to connect to a past loved one, or there's something in that regard, where my who I am is that I would never want somebody to come to me with that, and I would sense that, and so for me it's leading with um, with the purest of intentions, and making sure that um, whatever messages or whatever guidance or whatever, and I say is here, um, is completely in alignment for the better good or the greatest good of all.
Mhm.
So does that kind of
Mhm.
help
Mhm.
or answer or make so yeah. Sometimes I find I start answering a question and then I just go off, and then it's like talking about something else.
One of the things, and that's the beautiful thing about conversation, is that we drift off and we start doing other things, and
Oh.
and it actually speaks to one of the aspects of the training that our coaches and facilitators come through, is that we start off with, okay, here's a body of work that I'm going to introduce to you, and then every
Mhm.
single one of you has taken it and done something slightly or very different with it. And I love that. And so, like even just in this conversation, this is just like, oh, okay, I'm going to take this suggestion and I'm going to go off in this direction with it. So there's no prescribed way of doing it, but it continues to come
Yeah.
back to this core of how do I be my authentic self? And what you started to talk about it when I asked you this last question too was that lack place that you had for a while, which in our work we call the inner critic. And so
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
and so how many of us have had that inner critic come up and say, oh well, you can't do this, you can't be that,
Oh,
don't let them see that part of you. And
yes.
and I love, Marie, that you have been able to take the authentic leadership materials, connect more deeply to the truth of who you are, find a way to connect others to the truth of who they are, connect them together in conversation around some of these topics, and then bring in this beautiful additional gift that you have, which I personally have been able to experience, and suffering a very profound recent loss. I've had a session with you and I've had a chance to experience. This is a profound gift that you have. And I'm so glad that you haven't covered it up and said, oh no, I can't bring this into the world, because what you're bringing into the world is authentically you and deeply appreciated by those who are having a chance to receive the gift of you.
Yeah. Thank you. And I can branch off on that a little bit too, because that was part of it in the beginning, was the inner critic for me. Um, Even though I felt so, and I not felt, I was so connected to Tana's work. Um, but I didn't feel like I was young, it was like, okay, I was in my late, I guess I would have been, I think in my late 20s, early 30s. And it was like, I didn't feel that I was in the place in my life it felt, I was like, well, I'm not a professional. Who do I, who do I connect with? Where am I going to take this to? I don't know anybody who's interested in this kind of stuff, and I talked myself completely out of it. And that inner critic was the loudest voice that was in my head for a long time. But then being on this journey, it's like, no, I've learned to name her and disassociate with her most days, and sometimes can listen to her and go, okay, I remember that girl and I'm not her anymore, because of the journey that we take and who we become. So
Yeah, that's the lovely thing about getting older. We have a chance to
mhm.
to learn more and to evolve as well. Well, I am so
Mhm.
appreciative of you taking the time to chat with me today, and I'll look forward to having more conversations with you. And have a great day, Marie.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you.